everybody, welcome to Excel video 333. I'm Nate Moore. I was on site at a client's this week and we helped the surgery scheduling department. They had a bunch of parameters they wanted to schedule with, and the PM software wasn't as friendly about, okay, on this day, how many surgery blocks are open for this time period at this facility for this location. We said, hey, we'll just pull all that information out, put it in Excel, and let you do it your way. When you're ready to pull your information out of your PM system, I'd love to help you. You remember we played with a couple of goal-seek projects, and I've got one more down here where we just keep adding variables and we keep making this formula more and more and more complicated. And we can do things like, well, I added rental income this time and said, okay, here's the cost of the equipment, there's my payer mix, 50% Medicare, and here's what Medicare and commercial will reimburse, and I think I'm going to get 50 patients per month. And oh, by the way, I can also rent this, and forget Stark and all those other things. I can rent it for $2,000 a month to maybe another physician or facility or something. So the purpose of the analysis is to say, well, what if Medicare reimbursement goes down to, let's say, $100, and I still want to get it $655, or let's say 6.5 months is my payback. How am I going to do this? I could go to what if analysis. I could go to goal seek, and I could say set that cell to 6.5, and I want to change my rental income. It says, all right, Nate, if you get a little bit more, 2,648 instead of 2,000, why, you can still pay back in 6.5 months, even if Medicare reimbursement goes down, because it's 50 patients a month and they're only half your patients, et cetera, et cetera. You can keep getting more and more complicated with goal seek, but the caveat to goal seek is I can set a cell to a value, but I can only change one cell at a time, and there aren't any limitations or constraints or restrictions on what I can do to this cell or any of the others. If you want to do something a little more complex than that, what I want to do this time is introduce you to something called Solver. You need to activate it first. From the File menu, Options, it's available in 2007 in a similar way to get to it. Add-ins, although the Solver application looks different in 2010, but the way to get at it is very similar in 2007. How's that? Here's the Solver add-in down there. So it's inactive. What we need to do is activate it. We're going to manage the add-ins with Go. Click on the Solver add-in, click OK, and we're good to go. Now you'll notice in the Data tab, it's not under What If Analysis. It's got its own little area over here in the Analysis section. It's called Solver. And rather than do this complicated one, I'm going to scroll right on back up to the more the simpler stuff. Hide this, and I want to show you one example of Solver before we're done this time. What Solver will let you do is it says, okay, what's my objective? And excuse me for dragging this out of the way for a second. My objective is I want to pay for this equipment in 6 months, let's say. Now it says, all right, what variable cells can you change? So if I move this over here just a bit, see how my variable cells, I can change the cost of the equipment in B3, the reimbursement per patient, or the projected number of patients. I'm going to bring this back and say I'm going to allow all three of those cells to move at the same time. Remember, goal seek says you can only change one at a time. Solver says, yeah, you can change as many as you want. And it says, all right, you can do that subject to these constraints. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to add a constraint to the puzzle. And let me slide this down so you can see it. Let's say the cost of the equipment, I'm never going to get it for less than $43,000. So I'm going to say this cell here, B3, and the constraint is it has to be greater than or equal. Well, let's just say it's equal to. Let's make it easy. Let's say it's equal to $45,000. Then my next constraint is average reimbursement per patient, which is this average reimbursement has to be, let's say, I'm never going to get more than that. So we'll say $100 per patient. I'm going to add one more constraint. I'm going to say projected patients per month. My capacity is such, let's say I can never treat more than 100 patients in my clinic because I don't have the space, the exam rooms, the facilities, the whatever else I need. I can only do 100 a month. So if we click OK there, my solver says set the objective B7 to 6 months. I can vary all three of these cells subject to these constraints. this checkbox says they can't go negative. You can't have negative patients or negative dollars or negative reimbursement from Medicare, although I'm not going there. Let's click Solve. And Solve comes back and says I have a solution. And if I slide this over to here, if the cost of equipment is $45,000, my average reimbursement per patient is $100, and I can get 75 patients a month, I can get to 6 patients, and it works. I can restore the original values, or I can keep the solver solution. I can return to the dialog and do more work with it. There's all kinds of things we can do with solver. There's outline reports. We're going to play more with that, and we'll do it next time. Thanks for watching.